So now I'm talking about the third like I'm talking about the contact force, but the third force in that, okay. So I'll write the heading frictional force, okay. Frictional force. Okay. So now we are talking about which kind of force, student? We are talking about frictional force. Okay. So see, I'll tell you one thing. We have read, I have discussed this thing, I told you that without applying a force, okay, without applying a force, nothing can move, okay. Okay, so now we'll be talking about frictional force. See children, we have discussed this thing that nothing can, no non-living thing can move, okay. Even if I say like this, that neither a non-living thing or a living thing, okay, neither a non-living thing nor a living thing can move even an inch without applying force. So I won't be wrong, isn't it? I am a living thing, you are a living thing, but when we have to move, again we have to use our muscular force, isn't it? When we are moving, we are using our legs, and that means the leg muscles, and that means we are using our muscular force, okay. When animals move, they are also using their muscular force, okay. Now when I talk about non-living things, a non-living, any kind of non-living, take an example of chalk, take an example of blackboard, duster, wires, okay, bags, books, notebooks, anything. Can it move? This is a very basic question for you people. You all know that a non-living thing cannot move. Then let me know one thing, children. If non-living thing cannot move by their own, then when I roll a chalk or roll a ball on the floor, then why do it stop? Why it stops after moving, after covering a little distance? Why does the ball stop, children? Okay, so try to understand. I am saying that not even a single living or non-living thing can move without applying a force, okay. So this is anything, like maybe it is a duster, okay. So now if I throw, it will move, okay. But this I am throwing. If I talk about rolling the thing, if I take the example of the ball, okay, I just rolled a ball, it moves till here, okay, and then it stops. But I said that neither a non-living thing nor a living thing can stop or move without applying force, okay. So how does this ball stop? Why does it stop? It should be in motion continuously, but then why it stopped? Okay, because again a force is there which is forcing this ball to stop, okay. Friction. Now what is friction, children? Friction is a type of force which always have a problem with motion, okay. When you play, so why this ball do not just be in motion? When you play, there must be someone who always brings some kind of obstacle. A creeper, take the example of Tarak Mehta in that Popatlal. Okay, what he does every time he says cancel, 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 isn't it? So that means someone who always has one or the other kind of objection. Okay, one who always tries to stop the thing or cancel out the things. So here this one like friction force. Okay, frictional force is a kind of Popatlal. How, children? Because this is the force which always objects. Okay, if you want to move this side, it will stop you. If you want to move this side, it will stop you. You try to move in any direction, it has got a problem. Okay, now jokes apart. So what is frictional force, children? Frictional force is a force which opposes the motion. It is the force which brings the object in the position of rest. It is the force which brings the substance in stationary condition. Okay, it is the force which slows down the speed of a moving object. Okay, so how, like what is this? And how can I say that this friction is a contact force? So we'll go one by one, okay, we'll not go very fast, children, we'll just talk about the things one by one. Now, to start with, how can I define frictional force? What do you mean by frictional force? So if I have to define frictional force, we will say that a force which always opposes the motion. So let's see the definition. Let me write the definition, children. The force which always opposes the motion. Okay. Okay. So what definition have I written, children, over here? The force which always I have put double S, always opposes the motion. Okay. Now, what else can I write, children? This is the force. Okay. This is the force which always, what it does? Slows down the motion. Okay, slows down. What I am writing? Slows down the motion. Okay, it is the force, this is the force which always what? Brings the body, brings the moving body in rest position. Okay, in rest position. So, what I am saying, children, friction is which kind of force? Which always opposes the motion. Okay, which always opposes the motion. That means any kind of motion in any direction. Okay, in any direction it will oppose. This is what frictional force is about. Now, then this is the force which always slows down the motion. It always reduces the motion. Okay. Then brings the moving body in rest position. This is the force due to which any kind of motion gets stopped. Okay. Now, this is about, what is frictional force. Now, children, I'll just talk about few examples of frictional force. Okay. When we walk, we are applying force. Okay. Now, when we apply force and suddenly when we stop applying force, it won't happen that we keep on moving. Okay. When you talk about a car, when the engine is switched off, okay, when the engine of a car is switched off, the car won't move, children. Okay. Why it won't move? Because friction is there. Okay. Now, can we increase or reduce the friction? Okay. And how does friction is produced? We'll talk about this now. Okay. Now, when I say friction can be reduced or increased. Okay. Can friction be increased or decreased, children? See, I'll give you two examples. First of all, we can increase the friction and we can decrease the friction. Okay. Take the example of the slides. Okay, slide you all know, might have enjoyed in your childhood. Slide where which can be seen in the gardens where the children enjoy. Okay, that Fisal Patti which is known as. So take the example of slide. Have you ever seen a slide with a rough surface? Okay, a slide, ever you have seen a slide having a rough surface? You won't. Why? Because a child want to slip from there. Okay, take the example of the water parks. Okay, when you talk about the water parks, you all are very aware how big slides are there. Okay, have you ever seen a slide in the water park with very rough surface where you cannot slide from? No, you have not. Always when you talk about the slides, and especially when you talk about the slides which are there in the water parks, you will find these are very slopey and slippery. Why? Because the main intention is to slip, to make you slip from there, and which gives an sort of entertainment, which gives a sort of excitement, like with a great force you comes and you see yourself in water. Okay, so what is this? Slide has to be slippery. This slide has to be slippery, that means it can't be rough. Are you getting my point? When a surface, okay, when surface is smooth, okay children, when the surface is smooth, it will reduce the friction. Okay, it will reduce friction. Okay, whenever the surface is smooth, then what will happen? It will reduce the friction. Okay, that means we have intentionally the friction is reduced where? In case of slides, isn't it? In case of example, slides. Intentionally here the friction is reduced so that one can slip nicely and enjoy, isn't it? Now take the other example children of the very smooth surface. Now have you ever observed or watched in the movies and TVs and serials that if someone step on the banana peel, then again it gives a source, it becomes a source of laughter for us. Why? Because when a person step on the banana peel, he is going to fall, isn't it? Why does a person falls when he step on the banana peel? Okay, because when you talk about banana peel, it is smooth, that means friction is again very less. Okay, so when the friction is less, then again it becomes what? Slippery. Okay, it becomes very easy to move, and that is the reason that the person slips from there, isn't it? Okay, now take the example of this, your maid is washing the floor with soap, liquid soap, and totally the room is in liquid soap. The liquid soap is there in the room and she is washing, and just you step in. What will happen? You will give a chance to others to laugh, isn't it? Because you are not knowing that inside your room soap, liquid soap is spread over there. So what you will do, you will come running, and then what will happen children? You will become the source of laughter. You are going to fall down. Why? Because again soap, again it is slippery, it gives a slippery touch also. Okay, so when it becomes slippery, that means it becomes smooth, so friction will reduce. When friction will reduce, then becomes what? The movement becomes very easy, isn't it? Okay, now take the example of your bicycle. Okay, you might have seen that small this balls, small balls. If you open the pedal, you will get this small balls into the cycle's pedal. What is the function of this? That it is round and it is very smooth. So the pedal slips on that. It keeps on slipping on that. So it becomes easy to ride your bicycle, isn't it? So when the surface is smooth, you will find that it becomes easy to move. Okay. Now again, take the example of your fan or cycle. When it starts making noise, children, okay, when it starts making noise, that means what is happening? The two things are in contact with each other, which is creating friction. So when two things are in contact, children, and it is opposing the motion, I told you that friction is a force which opposes the motion. Okay. So again, what you do? You add oil. Okay, you add oil to your bicycle when it makes noise, or you add oil to the fan when it or anything. When it, take the example of your main gate. While opening and closing, if your main gate makes noise, then what you do? You put few drops of oil. Again, what it will do? It will become slippery, and the things will move, and the friction will reduce. So two things are clear here, children. First of all, frictional force, what it is. See, now I'll teach you what exactly friction is. Okay. Now first of all, frictional force. So what it does? It opposes the motion. Okay. It opposes the motion. Forget the motion is in which direction. Okay. It is in whichever direction it is. Frictional force is going to oppose the what? Motion. Okay. Then it is the force which when it opposes the motion, that means what it is doing? It is bringing the speed down. Okay. It is bringing the body in rest. It is bringing the body in stationary position. Okay. So this is what friction is. Now the next thing which we know now is we can increase the friction and we can decrease the friction. Here I have taken the examples of how can we decrease the friction, isn't it? Decrease the friction. Okay, how can we decrease the friction? So by making the surfaces smooth, we can decrease the friction. Okay. Now we'll talk about increase in friction. Increase in friction. Now children, how can we increase the friction? Have you ever gone to hospital where special slippery, slopey part is there? That means see, try to understand. Staircases are there, okay, lift is there to go up. Now the stretchers has to be in the lift when the patients are there on the stretcher. When the stretcher is empty, when it is like patient is not lying on the stretcher, then how it goes up? Is it possible to carry the stretcher from the staircase? No. In all good hospitals, you will find a slope, okay, like this, a slope. It is a cemented structure where the stretchers can move easily, okay. Have you seen any such kind of slopes in the hospital which is very slippery? Even talk about the railway stations. In railway station also you will find one or the other places slopes are there. Okay. Talk about the roads. Okay, roads very often you will see that slopes are there. Okay. Have you ever seen these places are very slippery like banana or like the soap solution? No. Why? Because here we need to have friction. Here we need to have more friction so that the person should not slip down. Okay. So if nurses and doctors, nurses are moving with the stretcher, empty stretcher, on this slope, if it is slippery, then what will happen? Everything will fall down. It will become difficult to move on this slopey part. Just see the comparison. Just try to understand. When we talk about slides, okay, the slides has to be very slippery so that the person can slip easily. Now, second thing, now I am talking about the slope which is there in the hospital, which is there on the roads, then how it should be? It cannot be smooth. It has to be rough. Okay, and especially these kind of slopes are made cemented, rough. Okay, rough tiles are being used over there. Why? To make this surface rough. Why? Because now we have to increase the friction so that one cannot slip from the place. Okay. Okay. Now we know what friction does. We know the friction can be increased and decreased. Now give me the examples where we can increase the friction. So or the friction is increased. So slopes of hospitals. Okay. Now take the example of tires. Children, you might have seen the advertisement of tire in television, like it has more of grooves. Okay, the surface, just see new tire, you will find some some rough surface and something is coming out. What? Why it is so? Children, because if the tires are being made smooth, okay, if the tires are being made smooth, if tire will be smooth, it is going to, like what, it will become very difficult to ride or to drive, because it will slip. Okay, it will slip. That is the reason the tires have what? It has got rough surface. Rough surface, that means the friction will become more. Always remember this thing, children, when the surface is rough. Okay, I have not written over here, I will write over here, a rough surface. Okay, rough surface. What happens in rough surface? When the surface is rough, the friction will increase. When the surface is smooth, the friction will decrease. Okay. Now, give me more examples over here. First of all, so rough surface, tires will talk about. Okay. Tire surface are very rough. Talk about your shoes, children. Okay, in shoes also you will see certain spikes are there. Okay. Why? Again, to increase the friction. If friction is not there, have you seen any shoe with a very slippery sole or the back side, the side which you are going to keep on the floor? You won't. Why? Because again the friction needs to be increased so that the person should not fall. Okay. So this is what, how can we increase, or how the friction can be increased or decreased. Okay. So now we know now how friction can be increased or decreased. But now I want to know what actually, like, is it contact force? Okay, like what? Okay. And like how it is produced. So children, the frictional force when two surfaces are in contact, okay, and when two surfaces are in contact with each other, the friction is produced. Okay, the friction is produced. So how friction is produced? When two surfaces are in contact. So that is the reason friction is produced, and so it is again which kind of force? It is a contact type of force which is produced due to the when two substances comes in contact with each other. Now, how this can be, like how we can say that it opposes the motion, or why does it opposes the motion? Okay. So children, what happens, suppose you talk about one box. Okay. Now if you try to move that box, if it is heavy, you won't be able to do it. Actually, you talk about any solid substance. Okay. Any solid substance, you will find that the surface is not smooth. Okay. Normally when we see any solid, we will find that the surface is very smooth. But if you see it carefully or under some aids, you will find it has got tops like hills and valleys, up and down, up and down. That means I am talking about solid substances. I am saying that no solid substance has very smooth surface. Okay. So how does this surface is, children? It is like this, hills and valley, hills and valley. Okay, hills and valley. Now, when one substance is kept on another, this comes in contact. Like this is the other thing. Okay. This is substance 1. This is substance 2. So, this hills and valleys, they form an interlocking. Okay. This is substance, this is 1 and this is 2. So, see, all the solids have rough surface. Okay. When you see it normally, you will find that there is no rough surface, but when it is seen by an aid, you will find that it has got hills and valleys. So, one got, it get interlocked with the other substance. So, when it is interlocked, it becomes so difficult to move this. Okay, how can you move when two things are intercrossed, intermingled with each other? How and what you will do? So, children, when it is like this, then we have to apply force. Okay, when the things are like this, that is the reason we need to apply force. When we apply force, the friction also get increased. Okay. Now suppose a box is there. Okay, this is a box. If I am applying force, okay, then friction will also increase. But friction will not keep on increasing. One time will come when our force, okay, the force which we are applying will overcome the friction and this interlocking will break. It is very, very important for a motion, like like if we want any substance to be in motion, we have to break the interlocking. Okay, until unless this interlocking has been broken, a substance cannot move. Okay. Now, so how can this interlocking be broken? When you push, and your push becomes more, push becomes like when you are applying more force or a force which is quite capable to break this interlocking, then the substance will or the object will move. I should say rather object, rather, okay, so then that particular object will move. So, we will just talk more about this. So, we will write the definition first, children. When a substance slide on a surface, okay, when a substance slide on a surface, okay, then the motion is opposed. Okay, and the motion is opposed, which is due to friction. Okay, so with the motion is opposed, why does it happen? Due to the friction. Okay, now you take the example. I'm talking about now one box over here. Now see, this is a box. Now, so this is a box. Okay, now children, I am trying to move. Okay, I am trying to move this box in this direction. Okay, I am applying the force here. Force is being applied over here, but what will happen, the frictional force will apply in this direction. The friction will apply always in which direction? this direction. Okay. Why it is so? Because this again is having this kind of surface which has got blocked, interlinked with the other surface which has again got hills and valleys. When this interlocking is there, the substance cannot move. When a substance will move then? When we will apply a force greater than, or when we apply a force which is quite capable to break this interlocking. Okay. When the force is applied, how much force? The force which is quite capable to break this interlocking. Okay. If this interlocking gets broken, then only the substance can move. Okay. So, when a substance slides on a surface, then the motion is opposed, and that is the reason it is again a contact type of force, because again the substance and the surface is in contact. Okay. So, this is what again it is known as frictional force. Okay. Now, we all know now that frictional force, what does it do? It prevents the motion. Okay. Friction always prevent, I cannot write here, prevent the motion. Friction always prevents the motion. Okay. So, I am saying that when I want to move a box, I am talking about solid thing, isn't it? Surface, solid thing. Just now talk about the liquids and gases. Okay. Talk about the water. Do you think in water friction is there? In liquids friction is there? Yes. Even the water, even the liquids and gases, they also create, at that surface also friction is there. That is the reason the body of the fishes are what? It is streamlined. Body of birds again streamlined. Why? To cut the air, to cut the water. But the friction which is produced, which it is slighter, it's quite lighter or less, I should say, right word, less or lesser than the friction which is being produced on the surface of the solid floor. Just take an example, children. As soon as we switch off the engine of our car, okay, when the engine of the car is switched off, then what happens? Car stops, isn't it? Now, if you have ever been on the ship, okay, if the engine of the ship is switched off, but again, do you think, have you observed that when does the ship stop? See, as soon as the engine of the car is switched off, the car stops. But when the engine of the ship is switched off, the ship doesn't stop, children. It moves a bit. It moves a good amount of distance, and that is the reason. The person who drives the ship, he switch off the engine before reaching the that surface only where we have to get down. Okay. So why he does so? Because he knows that even if he switch off the engine 2 minutes earlier, the boat or the ship is going to move till the banks. Why? Because water will also provide friction, but this friction is little lesser than the friction which is being faced by the cars, okay, or the vehicles which run on the roads. Okay, so what I mean to say, what I want to explain is the friction is there on the floors, solid. When I want to move the boxes, when I want to drive the car, friction is there. In the same manner, at the same time, if I talk about the friction in liquids and gases, children, even friction exists there. Even friction is there, and the body, the friction stop motion there also. But the friction is little lesser in liquids and gases as if you compare it with the friction which is there on the floors. Okay. Now, friction produces heat, children. Okay, friction produces heat. If you, very common example, when we rub our hands, okay, you will find that your hands become little warmer. Why? Because on rubbing, two surfaces are coming in contact, they are sliding on each other, and so frictional force is created. Okay, when frictional force is created, obviously heat will be also created. Okay, now you know, when if I ask children whether the friction is very important for, like it is very important, or it is just very harmful, I should say, it should not be there. So what do you think? What should be your answer? Yes, when I say that friction, the importance of friction, children, friction is very, very important. Due to friction only we can stop. Due to friction only we can walk. Okay, just imagine there is no friction, everything is very smooth. You won't be able to walk properly. You won't be able to stop. Okay, so friction is very important to walk. Friction is very important for everything. Okay, to be there nicely on the surface of the earth. Now, what are the disadvantages of friction? What are the disadvantages of friction? See children, when the friction increases after certain limit, or in normal case also, when due to friction the wear and tear take place. What is the meaning of wear and tear, children? Wear and tear means the breaking or spoiling of things. Okay. Now talk about your shoes. Why you have to change your shoes? Because it get rubbed off from down. Okay, the sole starts, it starts getting, it reduces, because due to friction you are walking daily, your shoes and road is in direct contact. Okay, again interlocking is happening. Again what will happen? The due to friction that surface is becoming it is getting spoiled. Okay, wear and tear takes place. If you talk about machines, why this machine, when it moves, it gets spoiled, it stops working after some time, because when the machine parts are, when they get rubbed with each other, again friction is produced. So what does friction cause, children? Friction causes wear and tear. Friction causes, the spoiling of shoes, chappals, footwears, I mean to say. Okay. So these are the disadvantages of friction, that wear and tear takes place. Then what we do? We oil. Okay, for shoes we cannot oil. So what do? We just go and purchase a new pair. But for machines, what has to be done? It has to be oiled, isn't it? When your main gate starts making noise, do you remove it and throw it out? Okay, oh, please move, you are making noise now. When your fan makes noise, do you remove it, throw it out? No. What has to be done? It has to be oil. When oil will be dropped over there, then what will happen, children? The again substance will become greasy. It will become oily, and it will start functioning properly, isn't it? So what we have read, friction is a force which is created when two surfaces slides on each other. Okay, friction can be reduced and friction can be increased also. How friction can be reduced? Friction can be reduced by making the surface smooth. Where it is important? It is important in the case of slides, okay, where the friction should not be there at all, so that one can slip and slide easily. Okay. Okay. Now how can the friction be increased? Friction can be increased by making the surfaces rough. If surface is rough, that means friction is more. Okay. More friction, more rough surface, more friction. Okay. Now, what friction is? It is a force which prevents the motion. It is a force which slows down the motion, which stops the motion, which prevents the motion, which brings the body into rest, which brings the body into a stationary position. Isn't it? So this is what we can talk about the friction. Friction always acts in the opposite direction to the motion and tries to bring that thing into rest position. So if I want to write friction produces heat, and how does the friction is produced? How friction is produced, children? It's making noise. Okay, how friction is produced? I think it should be very clear to you all now that how the friction is produced. So for this, what can I write, children? When two surfaces are rubbed against each other, okay, against each other, the frictional force or the friction is produced. Okay, when two surfaces are rubbed on each other, then friction is produced. Okay, just now I was talking about the liquids and gases, that the friction is also there. Okay, so you know one thing, what is liquids and gases are known as, children? Liquids and gases are known as fluids, if you remember. Okay, liquids and gases are commonly known as what, children? It is known as fluids. Okay. Now, so the friction which is produced in liquids and gases, okay, the friction which is produced in liquids and gases is known as drag fluids. Okay. So what, how can we define it? The friction which is produced in liquids and gases. Okay. So what is drag fluid, children? When friction is produced in liquids and gases. Okay. So now you all know what is friction, how it can be increased, how it can be decreased, what are the importance of friction, okay, what are the disadvantages of friction, okay. So what are the disadvantages of friction? That it brings the wear and tear in the machinery, we have to change our shoes, okay, these are the disadvantages, okay, then the machine gets spoiled, these are the disadvantages, okay. Now, what are the advantages of friction? We can walk, we can stop, okay. So, these all are the advantages of friction. Now, we will talk something more about friction now. So, how can we utilize or how can we reduce or increase? This reduce and increase can be useful for us. You know, by adding the tires, okay, by adding the tires again, the friction, see, if you have to lift a bag, okay, you have to drag a bag. You want to drag a bag, it will be very difficult for you to drag a bag. You won't be able to do it. But when tires are there in the bag, then you can pull the bag easily, isn't it? So this is how the friction can be reduced and can be used in our daily lives, okay. Now, one more thing. Now, when we talk about sometimes it happens that the trucks or the buses get stuck in the mud, okay, and the driver, he switch on the engine and you might have seen hundred of times that the tire rotates very fast but in the mud itself, okay. Recently just I saw in one of the ad also, like the tire was rotating and it was just rotating in the mud. Then what has to be done? A plank is used. Plank means, you know, wooden plank, a wooden piece of like a piece of wood which has to be kept over there, and then the truck can come on that and it can move. So again what is happening, the friction is increasing. In mud the friction, it is very slippery, so friction is very less, so tire keeps on rotating there only. But as soon as the wood piece is kept near the under the tire, so what happens, it comes on the tire and it moves out. Okay, so this is how friction works in our daily life. It's very useful for us.